Being a man is not easy, it's tough. But I think sometimes that is what makes it sweet.
The world doesn't want people who really are focusing on mediocrity. The world focuses on people who are willing to give something, because when you get value, you give value.
Proverbs 13 and verse 20. He that walks with the wise shall be wise. A companion of fools shall be destroyed.
When you show people your scars or some of the things you've gone through, they'll be able to open their hearts to you, because they connect with what you're saying. When
someone says you are not man enough, why is it bringing like doubts within you?
What you're not changing, you're choosing. Hello and welcome to yet another episode in this space where we reset and refresh. My name is Dorcas Owano and I am your host for today, and I am joined with two amazing gentlemen, Brian Nyambego and Martin Owila. Karibuni sana wadau.
Thank you so much.
Bana, you guys look sharp. Amkusema tunavaa koti.
It's a man's thing.
Sawa sawa, karibuni sana to the show. So excited to have you here. So I'll just allow you to introduce yourself, tell us what you do, and then we'll get into the conversation.
All right. My name is Brian Nyambego, a speaker, an author, and a personal branding trainer, but above all, a firstborn in a family of 6 kids, and I'm happy to be here today to pour my heart out. Thank you so much. Yeah.
Martin Owila is my name, also a leadership and talent development coach. So passionate about the young people, so passionate about sports and mentorship and matters of leadership. Yeah, so that is the space that I tend to dive into. And looking forward for this conversation, especially being a man, and today we are talking about men, so that is quite some great stuff for me.
Nice. Yeah. Karibuni sana. So guys, we have a Gen Z here, and then we have a millennial. So I believe this conversation ya leo, itakuwa very interesting, because we are also going to get like the opinions from the generations zote. So today we want to talk about men and vulnerability. I don't know what that means to you, Brian.
Okay, to me, men and vulnerability really means that, you see, growing up sometimes was so tough. From a point of, there's a time you could fall down, and then maybe your mother or your dad would tell you, don't cry, because if you cry, other people are going to, your brothers are going to cry. And that really made me grow with, or rather I can say any other person out there who's listening to me, maybe grew up with bottled emotions. They didn't know where to go and dispose them or tell anyone anything. That is why when you keep growing, probably sometimes when you keep growing, you're being told, mwanaume ni efforts, you know, in our country, that's what you're told. And that, I think with that, it never gives us time and space to express who we are, to express how we feel, to express, you know, there are a lot of things out there. And I was listening to a podcast yesterday, and there's a guy that says that when you see a man, there are more than 10,000 thoughts that are going around his head. You just don't know when, how. The only thing is you only need to give him space. And I feel like that is where vulnerability starts from. When we are kids, when you grow up, our parents should teach us to be vulnerable, not telling us don't cry because your siblings are going to cry, not telling us that don't do this because you know, it doesn't really make sense. Men don't cry. You know, those kind of slogans really make us either, you know, they usually say that when you in a certain state, you either get out of the bitter or better. And most of the time, many men end up being bitter instead of being better. Yeah.
Okay, it's quite nice.
Yeah, well, on my side, especially as a mental health champion, I think one thing that we need to understand is that when it comes to mental health issues, because we are talking about vulnerability, this thing does not discriminate on gender. So men, just like any other person, needs that emotional support, needs to be vulnerable so that we continue to grow. We are just men. Yeah, we are not perfect. We are not angels. We are not machines. We are not robots. So just like any other human being, the privilege is only that in human being there is a man and there is a woman. So vulnerability means in that space whereby it is okay for a man also to understand that it is okay not to be okay. Those are things that we need to really embrace and also support. So as we have said, it doesn't discriminate on any gender. Men need that emotional support. Men need the resources. Men need the empowerment. Men needs to be part of the society that embraces the place of vulnerability, so that we also understand where do we come in to support, where do we come in to pray with you, to heal you, to, you know, that vulnerability. Unless you are a machine, that is when you don't fall in that space of vulnerability. So it is okay to cry. Yes, men, we cry. We've cried before. Only that these are stories that men don't like sharing much. And I think within the conversation, maybe we'll get to understand then why. Because when it comes to vulnerability, men are very specific and very key on what we share with other men or what we share outside there. And sometimes it's, you know, the fear of being judged or the fear of what will people say.
Well, the society, because I think imeweka kuna expectations kubwa sana ambayo imewekwa sana kwa wanaume, like you're not supposed to cry, you're not supposed to express yourself. If you express yourself, especially maybe let's say you have a girlfriend, watasema huyo ni simp. Have you heard that though? Nika umekaliwa. Ati mse demo wake amemkalia, ile kitu yote anasema, anafanya. Yeah, I really love how you guys are explaining that. And I think, Brian, you mentioned something that is quite very important, that when you were growing up, your mother would say, don't cry, siblings wako wataonaje. And I think maybe just to ask, do you think your upbringing kinda impacts the way you grow? Because now you're growing from a boy to a man. Does it impact you in a bigger way?
Yeah, sure. So I think on this one I'm going to be hot. Hot means humble, open, and transparent. Okay. Yeah, so growing up, really, there are things that with those bottled emotions, there are things you can't do. Number one, you have fear. Fear about how are people going to see me in school. Or maybe, I'd put it this way, that you'll get people who are very outspoken in school to a point whereby they'll be called quote-unquote kiherehere. But in real sense, these guys, it's not that they're a kiherehere or something, they're just outspoken. And then they're able to speak for themselves. And because most of us have grown in those environments whereby we are told, we are being fed fear, we are told you can't do this because of this. So for me, it really affected me for quite a long time, until when I got to high school, when I was around grade 11, that is Form 3, is when I realized really I need confidence for me to achieve the things that I want to achieve. As a personal branding trainer, as an author, I need to stand in front of people, do this. But because I was told that men don't do some things, so that it really affected me in a way. But I think when I came to realize, I realized that what you're not changing, you're choosing. So instead of choosing what I was given before, I had to change for the perspective of maybe from a point of knowing that one day I'm going to have kids. And if I keep growing the same way, I will transfer it down to the generations. So it's a generation after another. So I decided to break that thing. Yeah.
Wow, that's beautiful.
Yeah, well, nakubaliana naye sana, because I'm just trying to think about why do we call it maybe Form 1, Form 2, and Form 3, just from the upbringing that we are trying to achieve now. The upbringing of a man really shapes a lot, because these are formative stages of life that man, you know, gets the experiences. So it's really going to affect how someone thinks, how someone behaves, how someone, you know, the environment that he or she has grown into it. And so for me, I think it might be a bit opposite with Brian, because growing up, I grew in Manyata Estate in Kisumu. And for me, you know, it was a man has to be tough, a man has to be this. And that's what I'm talking about, experiences. Sometimes I usually say, I don't really, you know, feel shy or surprised that I ended up even in rugby, because the kind of lifestyle that I grew in made me, you know, to develop that kind of tenacity and this and this. And then also, you know, you are upbringing in terms of the environment. Is it an environment that was just full of boys also, or is it an environment that, you know, were full of ladies? Because if you look at these two different personalities, one was grown in an environment full of women and one was just grown with boys. From there, someone went to a all-boys school all his life, someone went to a mixed school. All these things helps, and also just as an effect on how we come up. But most importantly, it's good to know that our upbringing shapes a lot when it comes to our values, when it comes to our morals, when it comes to our behaviors, when it comes to how we relate with people. And then now this comes now to affect now hizi vitu zingine when it comes to relationships, how we think, and all these things shapes a man. So I think for us, what is actually saying is very key. When you think about, I have a, you know, a young boy, you know, my son is just 1 year, 3 months old. And so for me now, I'm trying to think at what then do I begin to touch on for this young man to start seeing? Because remember, we start developing from what we see rather than what we hear and say. So the actions we were watching all around our environment has really shaped us to be who we are in terms of men. And so it's very, very important that for a man, your environment is very key. And also the people, the association around you will really shape who you are as a man. So itakuwa ati hapa mbele ndio tunataka kuanza kukublame, how did you grow? No, this thing starts way far. It is in our upbringing. Your education, your opportunity, your values, your morals is all way, way far from your upbringing. So it's very, very key that as we are tackling issues to do with men, we need to find a place of finding out what are the experiences. In mentorship, there's something we call the shape model. Yeah, and E, the letter E there stands for the experiences that we've had in the past, maybe in your primary school, ama pale secondary, ama the tertiary level, that have shaped who you are. How do you react? How do you, relate with people? Is it because of something that you went through while you were actually coming up as a man? Yeah. So as you transit from boys to men, there are certain things that you have not dropped. You've actually bottled them up. You've decided to have them within yourself that is actually affecting how you relate with people, how you handle issues, how you handle your mental wellness, how you handle everything that is around you. So upbringing is actually very, very key.
Very key.
Yes.
Wow. Now, we've been having a conversation online where quite a number of young people, especially the ladies, are saying that most of the young men, the Gen Zs, they're not men enough. Yani mtu anasema, the way that person talks or how the person treats them, it's kind of they're like woye. I don't know if you get what I mean. Martin said something very important. He was saying that he grew up in quite a tough environment. It looks like a traditional man, the way you were raised, and it's quite different from how most of the men in Generation Z have been raised. So what do you have to say about that? Maybe your balance, yani, as a Gen Z, do you think men are not men enough in this?
Okay, I think for me the way I'll answer that question is this. There is a difference when someone has exposure and when they position themselves well, or maybe when you have exposure and you package yourself well. You see, most Gen Zs, like I am a Gen Z, at the age of 17 I wrote my first book. I got my first job at the age of 19. Then at the age of 20 I had traveled all across, So I was doing things that someone who's probably 10 years ahead of me was doing. And then at that point you're being told, unafanya vitu zenye mtu mwenye ako 30 anafanya. So you see, there is two different people here. There is someone else who's my age, they're in university, and for them they're being paid for bills, but I'm paying bills for myself at the age of, I was paying bills at the age of 19 for myself. So that really shows you that it's different. The difference comes in where you have exposure, but how have you positioned yourself? Because there's this quote that says that, show me your friends and I'll show you your future. So that basically it, that if you show me your friends, I'll show you where you're going. If you show me your upbringing at some point, really determines, or maybe you might get exposure, like Martin. He got exposure when he was at a young age with the people he was interacting with. Or maybe I can take you back to, let's say, the Bible, Jesus, when he was at the age of 12. The people he was sitting around, the conversations he was having. So I think as young people should put themselves in those uncomfortable rooms, uncomfortable positions where they're able to have conversations that are mature enough for them to think ahead. But again, what I can tell any other person, maybe any young person who's listening to me out there, in regards to the question you've asked me, is have someone who's gone ahead of you, someone who's around you, and someone who's below you. Why? Because someone who's ahead of you, there is an aspect you get from them. You get exposure more. They get to tell you the do's and the don'ts. Someone who's around you, you get to remind yourself that, you know what, I'm just a normal human being. And then someone who's below you, this is someone who looks up to you. So whatever you get from up there, you pass it down to them. So I think that is what I can tell any young person who's listening to me. But most of us, we limit ourselves to a point whereby you're like, oh, I'm in uni, I can't do what that guy, like I'm just in uni. There's this whole thing of, I'm just a girl, right? And then, in the morning I was having a conversation with a friend of mine and I was like, I'm just a boy, right? So I think that whole thing comes in when you're having a conversation with someone who's around you. So that is also why environments are very, very key. With environments, they can either determine where you're going, or maybe I can say the people you're around with really determine how further you will go in life. And the things you will be able to achieve. And as much as you get exposure, position yourself well with the right people.
Yeah, nice.
Dorcas, I just want to pick it up from, you know, one thing we need to agree is it's not about Gen Z or what. You are actually man enough. It's all about, and I knew this question would pop in. I decided to write these 3 things. And I would like to pick up something from what Brian is saying. Now, most of us millennials, we grew with parents who are, you know, what I'll call really traditional oriented. You know, growing up in that era, it's either you need to be a doctor, you need to be a this, you need to be a teacher. There's some things we call traditional courses, right? The kind of generation we are having, and that is something we are encouraging when you go for these career talks, that you need to look for a course that you need to focus on contribution much. When we focus on contribution, then it sets you in a place whereby you are contributing to the society, your immediate society, and to the nation. So it doesn't shape up, you know, like I have to be this. The reason why people, you know, sometimes look at Gen Z and say maybe they are soft and this, you remember what their parents went through. So every generation strives at their own children to be the best. So whatever the generation that gave birth to Gen Zs went through certain things that they wouldn't want their children to go through. So when it comes to education, that is a non-negotiable area. When it comes to, you know, the 3 things that I wrote, let me just mention them. Number 1 was the emotional health. Emotional support that has come from the parents who have given birth to Gen Z is way much better, is way much far, okay? And so that has shaped who they are as a man, that he has come up from this place whereby they were emotionally cared for. Right now, you know, I take this phone and I call my dad and I just say, Dad, I love you. You know, the response is, yeah, I mean, it will be something that is not really, he knows I love him, but it's not a conversation that was actually, yeah. Maybe, you know, are you okay? And some kind of reply might come. But you see the Gen Z that we are having, this is a normal conversation, but because of how they have grown up. So emotional health and support that they have been able to get has really been key. Number 2 thing I was writing here is social skills and relationship. How do you relate? You know, how have you related with them, your uncles? That peer-to-peer, what is saying? Those who have gone ahead of you, those who are with the same level, those who are coming. So that also has shaped who they are in terms of men. That is why there is that confidence, because they used to relate. There is no fear. Hii si Simba wa Yuda, you know, daddy amekuja kwa nyumba, kila mtu amekimbia, amepotea. You know, there is no relationship. Our fathers and our parents will tell you during their time, Grandy will just be seated somewhere, you know, with his newspaper. That there's a routine you get. But now men are having conversations with their dads. Men are able to tell dad, niaje, this and this is happening, siski poa, I'm going through this and this. Some conversation that by this, us millennials, when you hear sometimes in a joke, but it's a serious issue. You get it? It's a serious issue. But why? Because they're having conversations. Yeah? You know, something that, during our time growing up, when I started playing rugby, coach angekuambia anything. They used to be called matusi or abusers, but you know, it just energizes you. Right now you do that, Maze, it's a mental health. We were dealing with one of our players, Maze. He just told the coach, Maze, I'm not feeling okay. And like, anapewa break. During our time, I mean, that was not, you can't negotiate with that. Lazima kujetizi, this and this. And it's a place whereby, you know, it's a place of a coach and a mentor. A coach really doesn't care whether you ate lunch or not. We need you to be in the field. We need you to perform. For example, as a man, there are certain things that are needed of you to actually perform. Allow me to quote a scripture from what he has said as I finish with this number 3, self-perception. Self-perception. How do you view yourself? When someone says you are not man enough, why is it bringing like doubts within you? Nika sahi msa kuja seme, maze, mato nadhani uko paged. And then, you as a man, you go to test to see if you're actually pregnant. It means you doubt yourself. You don't know who you are. Okay? So self-perception is going to be key for any man to embrace himself as man enough. We need to have self-perception, self-awareness, self-affirmation. Historia kungoja wase kwa kwambe venye mazee we pia umeweza, you are handsome. You tell yourself, mazee, this thing of trying to wait for, and I like saying it a lot, you can't be waiting for motivation speakers to motivate you to be man enough. Why? Find reasons to motivate yourself. Let your motivation be intrinsic. Find reason. you woke up this morning, that is a reason to motivate yourself. You look at yourself as a man, there are certain features that makes you embrace who you are as a man. Thank God for that, and just motivate yourself. I'm closing with this scripture, Hebrews 6 and verse 12. Let us not be lazy, let us not be slothful, but be followers of them who through faith and patience have inherited their promises. There are men in your line of career. There are men in your line of because some might say, okay, I didn't grow with a dad, I didn't grow with a father figure, I didn't grow with this and this. There are people who have gone ahead of you that you can seek wisdom from and have them as mentors. Yeah, we have men figures everywhere, uncles, teachers, pastors. Look for them and then embrace them and then walk through that path so that you keep on becoming the man that you see yourself becoming.
Okay.
Yeah.
I'm gonna nuggets, man. I'm learning. There's something you said, Brian, that in the journey of life you need to have someone who is ahead of you. Kuna yule ambaye anapaswa kuwa na wewe pamoja, and then kuna yule ambaye yuko chini yako kidogo. And maybe because you're a Gen Z and you have interacted with quite a number of them, what do you think are some of the lessons that you're getting from the millennials? Because I know you also have mentors, people that are working with you, and they are men in your life. Ni nini unaona kama Gen Z, like most of the Gen Zs who are men, wana fail kidogo kwa mambo fulani, and you think that these are matters that can be able to help them?
So let me start with the smallest thing, is which your brain is just like a computer. What it takes in is what it gives out, but the only thing is it gives it on paper. You're typing, you're using your fingers, but it gives it on paper. So I think as young people, the whole thing we need to realize is what you take is what you give. And most of the Gen Zs out there, what they're focusing on is this. They're focusing on you see, the world doesn't want people who really are focusing on mediocrity. The world focuses on people who are willing to give something, because when you get value, you give value. Maybe and another thing I think most young people don't focus on is they want to give what they don't have. So in case, let's say if I ask you for money right now, you will give me what you have. You won't give me what you don't have. So that is why I tell people that most of the time, go and get yourself to a point whereby you have much more than enough so that you can give people your overflow. Don't focus to give people when you have a glass full, a quarter glass full. Don't focus on that. So I think having mentors, people who've gone ahead of you, they get to pour to you because they have more than enough. And that is why I told you that it is more of like the form of it, like people are ahead of you, around you, your peers, and below you, people who look up to you. That is why when you feel yourself, you feel someone else who's below you. But now I think our generation really, it's about, we have two people who, I mean, the people who are acting. Okay, you see our parents, the transcendent form of communication was like this. Our parents were taught to just take in things and just act. For us, Gen Zs are not like that. Gen Zs, you have to sit down, analyze something before you give but now our parents were taught that, okay, you know what, this is it. You were given something, you go do it. You're not given time to think, sit down and analyze the do's, the don'ts and all. No. So I think mostly our generation should embrace that. Or maybe guys who've gone ahead of us. So we get to learn from different people. You see people are below us. Right now we have Gen Alpha, right? Yeah. So Gen Alpha are like a way different generation, and right now we'll have Gen Alpha, then Gen Beta or something. Yeah, Gen Beta. So I think with Gen Alpha, Gen Beta, there will be like way different, like it will be different than even the Gen Z. So we need to embrace this as we go, because what you're not changing, you're choosing. So I think we need to embrace change. That is the best thing I can say here. Yeah.
What you're not changing, you're choosing. Wow, that's nice. It's still the month of love, February. And on 14th, we had Valentine's Day. And at the same day, bado tulikuwa na the men's conference. Shout out to all the men out there who are ensuring ya kwamba other men's mental health yao is okay. Yeah, I came across a certain statement that I want to share. That real men don't stay silent. Real men need to hold each other accountable. And he said, masani ya kusafisha rada. And maybe what does accountability mean for you, Owila?
Well, for me, accountability is such a powerful word, you know, when you talk about it in any field. But this is a place whereby, as a man, no man is an island. Yeah, I used to listen to one reggae song that used to say, no man is an island. And that, yes, and that is, yes, so that in itself makes you to understand that, you know, Brian has mentioned about those who are ahead of you, those who are in the same level, and those who are below you. Accountability means that you are not a one-man person. You are not a one-man army. You can't do it all by yourself. Ever since, from the beginning, when we were born as men, people have taken care of us. It can be maybe someone who was just helping in the house, your parents were there, your cousins were there. And, you know, for some of us who have gone for dowry payments, you might understand one or two things. Huyu tulimlea, huyu tulimtoa, but some aunties just come from nowhere. They might have done that one thing. But what am I saying? People have been part of your life. Yeah, so now that you've made it, now that you are growing, now that you are becoming, and it is good, keep on becoming, but understand that you are not an island. You are not a one-man army. You need people. So accountability means that you have someone that you look onto. Is it a role model? Is it a coach? Is it a mentor? Every man needs to have these people in their life. You need a father figure in your life. You need a mentor. You need a coach. You need a role model. They push you. They show you, you know, where you are going to. Yeah, they've been there. It was Isaac Newton who said that the reason I've been able to see far is by standing on the shoulders of those who actually went ahead of me. So it's very, very key that you find those people who have gone ahead of you and follow after their footsteps. Those who have made it. Is one thing that we say about mentorship is that results matter. So you're not just following people aimlessly. Do they have results in the areas that you know you are called into, that you want to be? And number two is those who are with you also put you accountable. Why? Because you understand that, oh, iron sharpeneth iron. So if you know, for example, those of us who are into mentorship and personal development, public speaking, you get the likes of Brian, you get the likes of Okanda, Benin, all that group. We are growing together because we complement each other and we are trying to put our best for our generation. That which we missed and we are able to get at some point. Now we sharpen each other, we grow together, we put ourselves accountable. Just by liking that post or sharing or doing a referral is still part of putting someone accountable. Do you see? It keeps him going. Maybe saa zingine alikuwa chini anasema, hii kitu hata iwaka. Saa zingine naenda hivi, I invite people for this and this, only 2 people turn out. So when you refer them, when you like, when you comment, when you ask them, Niaje, are you still going on? How is that project? You put them accountable. Accountability is very key. And lastly is those who are below you. Pull them up, help them, support them. Remember you were once there. So because umekuja hapa juu imanishi sasa uwalenge. Waonyeshe njia, waambie mazee, hii route umechukua, sioni ukifika poa. Why? Because I was in the same route and this happened. So that accountability in itself helps you to evade many mistakes, helps you to reach your goal. Maybe even if it is not faster, at least what it took your mentor 10 years might actually take you 5. So accountability for me is that aspect of, you know, having people within your circle that helps you going, keeps you going, ask you questions. My mentor can tell me, Niaje Owila, ile post ulikuwa umeweka, I relate na this and these values, pull it down. And you're able to pull it down. Yeah, accountability means just like a coach can tell you, yes, when you're superstar, when you look at the best in high school, but hapa when you come club, this and this and this is how we operate. So accountability helps us to grow. Accountability keeps us to keep on becoming.
Okay, thank you. Maybe even just as we complete this episode, we have quite a number of young men in the society that are doing an amazing job, and you guys being one of just amongst the big number. Maybe what are some of the plans ama zile strategies ambazo you're trying to put in place to also make sure that we are having maybe the boy or the men empowerment, because the girl child has been empowered sana, and that's why now most of them feel like they are more like wako na nguvu sana kushinda the men. So what are you doing as men in the community to also make sure that you are running, yani mko kwa the same level na hizi empowerments ambazo zinaendelea? Deal with the ladies. Maybe Brian can.
So I'll start with, I usually do videos on TikTok a lot. There's a video I did for women, like trying to encourage a woman, and I realized like women kind of love each other a lot. They share. So the video got more than 100,000 views. Then I did a video for man to man, it got 50,000 views. Then that really showed me something. There's a shift somewhere. And I think the only way we can be able to cap that is by laying a strategy like, if for men, the whole thing is bringing them together. Sometimes it might be tough because they have bottled emotions inside them where they don't know where to go. They like, someone hasn't provided a space for them. On 14th, Abel provided a space for other creators, other men to come and just listen and have a conversation. Those are the kind of spaces that men need. The only way you can do that is by applying the few things I call. The first thing is connect with someone first. Put yourself in their shoes and ask yourself, if I was in their shoes, what would I have done? The second thing, with connecting, it helps you to communicate. Like now you can communicate better. And from communication now, it helps you to go and consult someone who is probably in the same space, feeling the same way that you're feeling, which now you are working together. What Martin said is that if you want to go fast, go alone. If you want to go further, go together, right? So after consulting, you get to a point whereby you're comfortable. And by being comfortable, you can share anything, that secret that you've been keeping for the longest. After you've consulted now, and you're comfortable enough, after being comfortable, now it gets to a point whereby it's now the complete face of everything that you've been doing, which leads to you to getting to your destiny. Your destiny can be getting a good partner. Your destiny can be getting to a point whereby you're able to tell people share your story, because personally I've shared my story, because the reason I really love these conversations about mental health is because I went through a lot after my mom passed away. And now if I'm able to share my story on a platform with 1,000 people and tell them about what I went through as a man, they get to connect with me easily, and they get to come, we have a conversation, they get to be comfortable, they get to share, and then with that we get to create someone who is, now I can call a man enough, someone who's able to learn from other people. And I believe the only thing we can do is just create spaces, and that is what I'm trying to do through my masterclasses, events, anything that I can get that is a space where I can share, that is a safe space where I use to, because my mantra is, if I'm going to change someone, I have to make sure that I've created meaning in them, purpose and fulfillment, and mostly fulfillment, them being fulfilled of what they are doing and where they are going. Yeah.
That's nice. There is something you mentioned very important, that when you shared your story on how you lost your mom and how that has been able to impact who you are today, you found quite a number of young men that are reaching out to you. And it just reminds me about how authenticity is very important. When you show people your scars or some of the things you've gone through, they'll be able to open their hearts to you because they connect with what you're saying. But I think, I don't really think if this happens to women, but men, sana sana, unapata mtu anasema, niwaambie ndo afanye nini? Like, I'm just trying to paint, I'm trying to paint, like pale online, maybe you're painting a picture of a very perfect person, you get it. Now, even the young men who are struggling with quite a number of issues cannot come to you and share with you because they're like, oh, Bran is so perfect. How am I even going to start? Maybe Bran is going to judge me, Martin is going to say that I don't know what I'm doing with my life, and all those things. So I think it's also a challenge to the men that we have out there. Let's have authentic conversations. When you show your scars, it becomes very easy for another person to open their heart to you. Yes. Martin?
Maybe on my side, maybe three things. Number one is just to pick up what Brian is mentioning. We are trying to normalize mental health conversation when it comes to men. This ya kusema sijui wanaume hata wakangi chini. Yes, atukai chini kaa chama ama whatever sako, but you see we talk. One of the things I remember when I started Mentor Me program during COVID, I gathered 10 boys that time. One of the topics that we had was on relationship and sex and drugs and what. And we realized it was very challenging sometimes. Just there are certain topics, just sitting men down and talking to them, you don't get that conversation. So we decided to go do a hike. So it was during the hike, we did a pairing, and then with our team now, we were into different groups. So as we walk, we build a conversation. By the time we reach to our destination to sit, we have already gathered one or two things about these boys and what is going through their mind. Giving reports to some of the parents was very shocking, because we realized there's one gentleman that was, very built up, and, the parent didn't even know. We actually find out this guy was actually bullied. One was actually molested. So this came during conversations, but it came so deeply because of also what we were sharing with them. And borrowing something from sports is that most people see our medals, most people see, especially with rugby, you know, these guys are just energetic. Umse ako sawa, umse atananga stress. But behind the scenes, there's a lot that happens. We've had some of our men, rugby men, that have gone crazy. Some have gone into depression. And this is all round in sports, military. Men are going through a lot of stuff. And so one of the things that we are trying to do is to normalize mental health conversation. Number 2 is to build support networks.
Okay.
Proverbs 13 and verse 20. He that walks with the wise shall be wise. A companion of fools shall be destroyed. And so building such kind of networks, find people in your area of calling. And, you know, work with them. Abide with them. Normalize conversation. Maze, yezi kuwa ati we ni mwanaume. Some of these conferences, workshops, summits are free to attend. Unasikia something inafanyika hood, men are gathering, you know, maybe Robert Burale, the coach, has called for. Just make time, go and attend. It's for your own good. Juu sisi kama dem, hatuna time ya kukuremind sijui tukutax ni aje utakuja. No. Ukishaona kwa status tumeona umeona, we are assuming or we are hoping and praying that you make it. So as we build on support networks, this is now the place of building intentional networks with your friends, with your crew, with your base, but let it be aligned. Is it in your passion? Is it in your vision? Is it in your mission? That then helps you to grow. That helps you to grow. Okay. You can't be a man, maze, like our young men who are even in the uni. We ni chopi tu, we unandaga tu daro, we unasomanga, we unataka first class. You are not in any club, you are not in anything. You are not in games, uendangi freshers. There is no event you go to. You can't grow mentally, well-being, holistically in that manner.
Okay.
So we're encouraging you to build support networks. And then lastly is on what we call physical health and mental health. Okay. And that is why you see men, maze, when it comes to sports, tutapia. We want to go there, we shout, we scream, we celebrate. We can talk about a player who is miles in a different continent. Na venye tutamchambua. You see, and that is what we want also you to embrace. Okay? The same way you're able to chambua that, you know, Messi or Ronaldo and stuff, what are you doing about your physical and mental health? Because these things go hand in hand. So we encourage you, not everyone will be in sports, but at least find something that engages you physically. Find something that engages you physically. So in our space, I'm into team building with the Leadership and Capacity Building Center. So I go there as a facilitator. And so when you do these kind of things, our end result is to be able to see this person, you know, relieved, or maybe from his work space. Yeah, but at the end of the day, that mentally, physically, they are doing well and they're doing okay. The other thing is visiting. Like today, I was sharing with Brian, I'm going to Githiga Boys. An alumni of that school who knows me just texted me and said, hey, Niaje, I'd like you to go to my former school, boys' school, and talk to the sports boys there. What is the issue? Just talk to them about how do we balance sports and academics. And so as I go there, we are not just going to be speaking passionately, but also to share our own dream. Because I'm a product of a sports scholarship. But you see, when they give you a sports scholarship, they don't expect you just to play for the university and win games. They expect you also to perform in your class. And that is also for your own good and benefit. So we are also talking to boys in different boys' schools. I've been having a session with Mary Shaw School, home of the boy child. Different schools, as we are called upon, we appear. And so we share with them what we've gone through as boys before and as men, and we continue to become. So those are some of the spaces we are trying to bring in solutions. And just to encourage men outside here that please, you are not alone. Being a man is not easy, it's tough. But I think sometimes that is what makes it sweet. Yeah, ukijua tu mnaenda game, for example, kushinda, but when you know it's KCB Rugby versus Oilers this weekend, you know there's some action, there's some sweat, there's some pain. At the end of the result, the results comes out to be a very beautiful thing. So don't fear the process that you're going through. Embrace it. Yeah, you'll be stretched. In that stretching as a man, you'll feel the pain. In that stretching, you are growing. Yeah, if you're not growing, that is when you don't feel the pain, you don't feel the stretching, things are not changing. As long as you are growing as a man, then some of these things are key and they are going to be there whether you like it or not.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's very profound. Brian, I think you can just give us your parting shot, something you want to tell the men out there, yeah, that you feel is going to be very beneficial to them?
Okay, I'd say this, that live, love, laugh. Those are the three things I'll tell you. Live means live your dream, do something that you love doing, okay? With a quote that says, don't ask yourself what the world needs, ask yourself what makes you come alive, then go do that. Because really what the world needs are people who have come alive. And then with love comes peace, comes perfection. You realize that. And then lastly, laugh. It's never that serious. Take yourself out at some point, go with the boys and just, you know, relax. And then I think with that, it helps you to sit down and ask yourself, where did I go wrong and what can I do next time better than what I did? So it's either you become bitter or better at the end of the day. So take care of yourself. That's it.
Oh, thank you so much. Maybe where can the viewers get you in case they want you to go have a session with the other boys? Brian?
Personally, on all platforms, Brian Nyambego, all across. Yeah.
Okay.
I'll finish up with a scripture, Job 14 and verse 7. The Bible says there is hope for a tree. If it be cut off, it will sprout again. There is hope for you, no matter what challenge you've been going through as a man. There is hope for you, there is hope for me, as long as you seek that counseling, as long as you seek that prayer, as long as you seek that guidance, as long as you seek, you know, that network that you go to. So please, don't give up on yourself. There is hope for you and me. And as a man, remember that you need motivation. And we are here to remind you that don't look for people to motivate you all the time. Find reasons to motivate yourself. Number 2, attitude. Have a positive attitude. Mazee, jiafamu we mwenyewe. Mujiambie mazee naweza, I can do this. So that it keeps you going. Have a positive attitude. And then lastly, network. As a man, you have to have motivation, have a positive attitude, and then network with other men. In networking, you find people who can hold you, who can advise you, who can strengthen you, who can work with you. And you'll find yourself maybe having people who are even in the same line of vision and career that you are in. So thank you. God bless you.
Nice. So this brings us to the end of our today's episode. Until next time, kwaheri. Bye.